Hello, my name is Deck Birchall and welcome to this behind the scenes look at the sound effects and Wise implementation for this resound of John Lemon's Haunted Jaunt. For this project, I wanted to create an atmosphere that fit the visuals of the level and to accurately represent the game world, but not be too spooky. I was aiming more for a child's haunted house ride at the fair than an 18+ horror film. I started this project by planning out which sounds I wanted for different areas and the enemies, and writing them down in this planning document. This was coloured in as the project progressed, to reflect the status of each sound, green for completed, and red for things that were removed or no longer required. Once I knew which sounds I would need for the project, I started creating the assets. All the editing work was done in Ableton Live, and many of the sounds in the level were created from my own recordings, synthesized using MIDI instruments, or edited from sounds in my library. I kept the sound files quite short to cut down on memory requirements. For the ambience layer, I played into some common haunted house tropes. It is raining, the wind is howling outside, and there are occasional thunderclaps. A lot of the filtering and EQ was done inside Wise instead of Ableton, which allowed for greater control of the sound. For example, I used the Wise low pass filter on the wind to create the effect of the wind being outside the house. A large amount of the mixing was also done in Wise using voice volume, which, when combined with the Connect to Remote Platform feature, let me construct a mix while the music and other sounds were also playing. The first sound I implemented using Wise was the ambience layer, comprised of the wind, rain and thunder, which is initialized when the game starts and loops continuously. The thunder is on a random timer, which is controlled by this delay transition and can be up to 50 seconds, while the wind and rain are present throughout. Sometimes the thunder sound would clash with the music, muddying the mix, so I created this RTPC from a meter effect on the thunder bus, which allowed me to effectively sidechain the volume of the music to the thunder, ensuring that the thunder always cuts through the mix and does not create low-end mud. For certain sounds in the game, which the player hears often, it is important to have a large variety of sounds that can be played for each purpose. There are 12 variations of each type of footstep sound in the game, for wood, on the rugs, and on the tiled floor, and each of these is also randomly pitched and attenuated to create even more variety. As John walks around the house, the floorboards can randomly creak as well, which is controlled by the probability slider in the footstep play event, which is set to 4% to prevent the repetition of these sounds becoming annoying to the player. These creaks obviously cannot happen in the tiled rooms, and this behaviour is controlled by the same switch group that controls which footstep sound bank is played. I use footsteps as an example here, but every sound in the game has multiple variations. I used a lot of box triggers and AK trigger enter and exit components in resounding this level to control several different aspects of the sound. These trigger boxes are used to play the spooky sounds from the wardrobes when John is in the immediate vicinity. I controlled the sound of John's footsteps using trigger boxes as well, tied to a Wise event that changes the footstep material switch. These trigger boxes are matched to the size of the rugs, the carpeted bedrooms, and the tiled rooms. Using this method was less computationally expensive than checking the material under John every frame, or even every time he takes a step. The footstep sound itself is triggered by an animation event in the John Walk animation, which calls a simple script attached to John's game object, posting the Wise footstep event every time John's foot touches the floor. There is a script attached to John's game object that constantly checks the distance to the closest enemy. If this distance is less than the predefined value of 2.5, the script triggers both a musical response as well as a sound effect. This event has a probability of 25% and a cooldown time of a few seconds to prevent constant re-triggering by remaining within the trigger distance. Thank you for watching this behind the scenes look at my resound of John Lemon's Haunted Jaunt. The full gameplay demo and music behind the scenes are available separately in different videos.